Hi, this is Bob Weiss. I'm the host of Shaking Your World. Cheers. Welcome home. Yet another segment at Shakers. This is episode, 345,000 or something. Today we have Brian from Connecticut in the house with us. He is a tour manager for various bands and for some artists. And tell us about yourself, Brian.
From Connecticut, yeah, but now living here in Milwaukee. Very proud to be able to say that these days. I'm a tour manager by trade. That's my main source of income. I'd say it probably provides about 3/4 of my yearly income. And it's an independent contractor kind of scenario. And right now I work for one singular hip-hop artist. And actually, I guess what you'd really say is I'm not really working for anybody right now. Our entire industry has been fully wiped out from coronavirus in the pandemic lockdown. We'll be shut down probably for a lot of people think till about summer next year. So, a lot of free time on my hands these days.
That is a long COVID-cation.
Sure.
We certainly are familiar with that as well as Shakers. Obviously, the restaurant was mothballed for several months when we went through the process. We had the great opportunity, though, to spend our time more prudently than most. We did an awful lot of reconstructive work here on the beautiful antiquitous historic structure.
Yeah.
Things that we could not have otherwise accomplished. Now, you're going to be on, again, hiatus for probably another year.
Yeah.
So when you come back out, what venues are you guys looking at?
Ideally, once the green light is given for events to take place with like large capacity gatherings, the idea would be to go right back into business as usual. The artists I work for right now, we're looking at venues usually north of about 2,000 people a night. Depending on the city, that can easily go up to 10,000 people a night. So in that size capacities, you're looking at very large theaters, weather dependent and season dependent amphitheaters, and certainly like small capacity arenas or possibly full-size arenas that are just scaled down for that evening's event.
Sure.
But yeah, the idea is that once things become open, anything that should be open to a crowd of 500 people, the ideology is not going to really change working its way up to 20,000 people.
Sure. So
we should be able to just be told, yeah, things are back to normal and just go right back to offers and touring.
So things like Summerfest, Lollapalooza, Burning Man, are you doing those kind of gigs or?
Yeah, I've done Summerfest a couple times before, Lollapalooza as well. I'm not exactly sure on how things are being handled with how these festivals are being canceled. It's very common within the festival world that an artist will not play the same festival 2 years in a row.
Sure.
So this becomes an interesting conversation between the buyers of festivals and the booking agents for artists is what they're going to do, because they confirmed artists for shows that were supposed to take place this year.
Right.
And now they have to renege on that. But they also had artists confirmed for 2021,
Sure.
And now there's an overabundance, saturation, and they're going to have some serious conversations to figure out. Financially, though, I know that as shows were canceling, as March was taking place, there was definitely already pandemic language within clauses of contracts.
Right.
All those shows were very fully insured. Nobody took huge hits on that end. It was more so projected income in the future where everybody lost. So that's a little bit of a saving grace where everybody was able to tread water and not immediately sink. But now we're at a point where we're months into this where we weren't really sure the conversation was only going to be this far, and we weren't fully sure when things were going to get back to normal. And now it is time to think, how do you withstand another year of $0 of inflow guaranteed?
Do you have the capability, or are you doing things online? Are you selling merch? Are you?
Yeah, artists can do that, and that'll, but that doesn't really, but that'll help the artists, and that'll help keep them relevant, and they can figure out revenue streams within that sort of platform, transferring to a digital manner, a digital place. But your concert promoters are still left out, they're left out in open water right now. And the concert promoters are the people that artists need in order to get to these cities to have these shows happen.
Sure.
That's the way the conversation essentially takes place when you go to a concert. The reason that person came there is because somebody locally said, I want you to come here, So we need that initial person to bring them here, So them, there's been attempts at different ways so far to sort of offset that and do like digital festival style events. But I mean, when you're talking something like a Lollapalooza that's used to bring in multi-million dollars a day and selling, upwards of 50,000 tickets per day over 3 days, that's a very hard loss to try and recoup on just in a digital space,
So what is your personal thought about this? Are we going to go back to normalcy, or are we just going to go back to something completely different?
That's the big conversation in my industry's world right now is like, where do things go from here? Does this create a paradigm shift? Do we now figure out a new way for people to have that connection with artists, knowing that it may not be as feasible to do touring as we know it? I think we're still so in that question mark area right now. We're still so unsure of what the future holds for us in a short term and most certainly in a long term, that, my own personal opinion, I think in the immediate sense, things will go back to normal. People immediately put festivals back on. People go back on tour. They'll capitalize. But, it depends also what kind of things come out of platforms like Amazon, Hulu, Netflix. They're taking massive conversations right now with our industry, being aware that there's a loss of that concert sort of viewership right now. They've obviously, as corporate businesses as they are, they're looking for a way to capitalize and take that market. But there certainly aren't any solid leads going on yet. There's nothing really like figuring that out. Like how do you get that same feeling of being at a concert, feeling that emotion, being in that weather, drinking the drinks you drink? How do you translate that to charging somebody to watch something on their phone, or in their living room, or on their computer?
Is you can't. You cannot take that experience and
it's hard.
Manufacture that in a remote location. So something like the DNC, you certainly can do most of that because, by and large, it doesn't have the same emotionality that certainly a concert does, or a performance the same type of ilk for performance art. But that's crucial to what everybody does. It's like we do a lot of cooking videos as well, but you can't replicate the smells. And so much of my food, at least, is based upon that ability, because even my stuff at Neiman Marcus, you'd smell me 4 floors away, and that just brought people in, a Pied Piper effect kind of a thing. And music is one of those cultural identifiers that is so imperative to us. It's not just listening to the music, it is those experiences that you're just talking about. And from that, people have had such a more complete life, a richer life, and because it hits all the senses. It's remarkable. I do think that what we are going to go back to is not going to allow what we've enjoyed the last 60 or 70 years. And I think that this kind of fits in that whole artificial intelligence thing as well, because so much of what we've anticipated to take place on a daily basis will just be gone. And you think about cars, self-driving cars, you think about any number of other things that just people are not going to be necessary or mandated for driving semis long haul, or any number of things. So it's almost going to be the same thing with your experience. If there was just a way to, get that sweat from the performer that comes through your screen or something, then you've got something as well. Otherwise, you're lost.
Yeah. What you said there, it made me kind of think. I went off on a tangent in my own head for a minute when you were talking about the restaurant industry, and that's very much the same kind of thing. Is you can't replace the experience of being out in a restaurant setting, whether casual or a date, sort of scenario. You can't replace that with cooking at home, no matter the cost difference. It doesn't matter that cooking that meal that cost me $100 in this setting, I can cook it at home for literally $10, That doesn't replace what took place over the course of that evening. The full-on experience that you produce out of that. And I think that's going to end up being a general, that's probably just a general discussion over many many industries and many mediums of what's going to happen after this. You know, there's certainly, I think we're at a point. It's interesting. I'm 33 now. I think like this is one of those first things in my life where I'm gonna very soon be talking to people that are younger than me and being like, I remember when we used to be able to go out and be shoulder to shoulder at clubs and stuff. I remember when we didn't have to wear like certain kind of, you know, cover up materials just being in a public setting. And it's like, I think this might just be the way it is.
Well, Brian, the evolution clearly has been going on for a while anyway. If I think back in the 40 years I've owned bars and nightclubs and restaurants, it was normal, obviously, for the longest time to have this just smoke-filled atmosphere, people just smoking cigarettes, including the performers, especially all the jazz bands that we handled. And everyone's got a fag in the mouth. Everyone is just smoking away, puffing, puffing, puffing. And now a lot of bands won't play here because, oh no, you got smoking going on. We can't be around. I'm like, where are your roots? I remember you 15 years ago.
Yeah.
When you were that guy on that stage that was puffing away.
Smoking's a very interesting one. So working in music, I started out in rock bands, like very much. I'm now with hip hop. It's just genres are different in the sense of how business is handled, the kinds of people that work within those businesses as well, within those genres. They're all handled very differently. Pop is handled differently from rock, handled differently from country, from hip hop. They're all different styles. And rock still has a few of those elements that like we're probably familiar with hearing from the 80s rock bands and like that kind of lifestyle. So obviously you get characters that are within the crew world that are the same way. You know, smoking becomes a very prevalent thing. I'm a smoker myself. I've been a smoker for a while. And it's I've been touring for coming up on 11 years now. When I started touring 11 years ago and I was around rock bands and we were doing more of a grind and trying more, even the artists we were working with were more in a trying to make it phase. Sure. Everyone smoked. Everyone, all the time. Any band that's on stage, you go out the like side back door, you step outside, there's always somebody to smoke with. Nowadays, like even when you go to festivals, that's when you really like you start being around crews and teams from different genres and different atmospheres and stuff. Nobody smokes. I'm like the lone person out there. I just wrapped up an arena tour a few months back, and I'd go out for a cigarette during like the headliner's set, and there's not a damn person out there. It's just me. Yep. And it was one of those things like, wow, this is not the thing anymore. This is not what it used to be. And I hear from people in generations ahead of me how smoking was handled prior, you know, and how casual of a thing it was. Yeah, times are changing in general.
Yep. Well, the other thing about that is that I in my career as a chef, I've catered a lot of things at Summerfest, other venues as well. And REO, for example, you do REO and they're big on Cajun food. But at the conclusion of the show, as you're striking your set or they're striking their set, and these guys are entertaining because, of course, they don't do the striking. But you've got 100 women that are queued up outside that back door that are from 18 to 80 years old that just want to get their 15 minutes with anybody in the band kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I got to think now with COVID going on, what's going to happen with groupies because... And so therefore goes a lot of the motivation for a lot of those, headbanging kind of guys that are in there for the tail, right?
Yeah.
And in there for the drugs. And really, drugs are kind of on the way down as well. And tail, well, you can't be picking up groupies. So I guess maybe the creative process is going to stifle itself that way too.
That's an interesting thing that I talk to people about when you talk about stifling the creative process and mentioning things like groupies and whatnot. So this is something that I've learned through, again, businesses operate differently depending on the genre that they are. They just handle things differently in different departments. So working in hip hop, there's certainly a party atmosphere. There's certainly a casual sort of movement to the schedule that has to take place in order for the true business to be able to move forward. And when you really think about it, you think about the lyrics that they're singing about. They're singing about a lot of these moments, and they're talking about a lot of their personal situations, things that they personally own, tangible moments in their own lives. They're not so much storytellers as much as they're giving you like updates and live updates on their life and what possessions they have. Well, I'm right there in that. And I also have a lot of, as a tour manager, I have a lot of control over the movement of the schedule, when we leave cities,
Sure.
how we can move around and whatnot. When you start limiting that, I'm now limiting the lifestyle. When you limit the lifestyle and the lifestyle is what is spoken about, I limited the music. And I don't want to be attached to that. If y'all want to come, if I'm telling you bus call is at 4 o'clock in the morning because we got to get out to LA, and you come back to the bus and it's 3:45 in the morning and you have 4 girls with you and everybody's wasted, and you say, push bus call back, I'll let you know when I want to leave. You know what, brother? For starters, you're the boss. So, yes, sir. And secondly, I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not going to tell you what's in the best interest of your business because getting there late is going to cause us to spend an extra hour on union labor workers in the arena that we now have to hold for an additional hour over what they were supposed to, which pushes them into their new 3-hour window. So you now just incurred 4 hours. We're not going to have that conversation. I'm not going to impede on your lifestyle because your lifestyle is exactly what makes you the money that gets me paid, you know? That's my thought process through that.
Yeah, what else is there? You know, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, cool.
But I hear you travel, right? You like to travel?
Yep.
Yeah. Obviously, that's half the job with my world. Is that something nationally, internationally?
I get to do both.
Yeah. What do you prefer? Like, what's your way of traveling? What's your
everybody? You know, once upon a time that was driving for me because
Yes.
I really enjoy driving. But I think probably the last 10 years or so, that's become more just flying to different places because I've gone further away. Now, you know, flying to Hong Kong last year was a 15-hour flight in that can, and it's, you know, you are up and you land 15 hours later.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm just not a fan
Is that
of that.
out of San Francisco?
No, out of Chicago.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
straight from
so,
Chicago.
So only 15
That's
hours,
nice.
but it goes straight up towards the pole and then over. However they loop that,
Yeah.
it's shorter than actually going laterally.
Right.
But those flights, I think, have just gotten to be too long for me. So the 8 or 9 hour hop that takes you to Europe, that's cool.
Yeah.
But I think once we're past, you know, that 10-hour range, certainly, I'm just not digging that as much.
Yeah.
And yet, if I don't do that, I'm not going to get somewhere unless I want to make a lot of little puddle jumps. And I'm not a big fan of takeoffs, and I don't mind takeoffs or landings, but I don't like the concept of wasting time in terminals or, you know, switching and running from gate 27 to gate, you know, 300 over there. That's a pain in the ass. So, yeah, air flight has moved a long way from what it was back in the 60s and 70s when I first started doing it. And TWA and Eastern Airlines were exquisite airlines. And not to bash anybody, but what you get today from the big three, from Delta and you know, American US,
We're getting cheated.
we are getting something completely different. Even, you know, Big Blue, United Airlines ain't what it used to be. Well, none of them are, but they also kind of don't have to anymore because they are their own competition, and that's all there is, right? So, you know, I don't like flying, but I don't like hanging out in airports. There's my quick answer.
That's right, and that's what's interesting to me because I'm the exact opposite. Is for me, I'm certainly trying to take 3 to 4 hour legs.
Okay.
I'm not like, I don't enjoy when I have to take that like 6-hour flight from New York to, you know, London. You know, I'm not really a fan of that. Obviously, that one you have no choice. But like if I'm flying LA to New York, I would love to have a connection in Chicago because for me, I just get stir crazy in that seat. It's nicer to just kind of break it up for a moment. And what I find is interesting with international travel is I use Google Flights for my, that's the other thing with tour managing is logistics. You're handling the logistics and the finances of touring. So like that aids in my personal life massively. So I use Google Flights in order to do all my searches for flying, and you can find a lot of flights these days that will have 20-hour layovers in a city, you know, and you can sort of take your travels and just maximize it a little bit further by seeing a little bit more that you didn't plan on it, you know. Iceland's a great city for that. Landing into Reykjavik, it's pretty common to get huge long layovers there, and that's a beautiful place. Beautiful people. I worked for a band from Iceland. These people are very special people as a community. They're not like, they've been so closed off to the rest of the world for so long, up until about World War II, that it really has put them in this place of just like being very honest and genuine. Getting to experience quite a few people from that culture made me really kind of realize what it's like to be an American and like how we find our gains in life, you know?
Well, absolutely. You know, it seems that almost everybody that we end up talking to at some point is talking about their experiences as they're going to different places. And
Yeah.
I think that we are better as people, and I have long maintained, when I was still in college or out of college, I'd say that if every American politician was forced to spend 30 days in Europe, we'd have a much different system here because, I mean, there's some remarkable things about America, but there's also some things that we don't have the appreciation for, the social intercourse, the cultural aspects of things that Europe has been doing for thousands of years. And I think that we'd benefit from that. Of course, with the mess that we have going on today, which is not just in the U.S., by the way, but the mess taking place today, I'm not quite sure how that would dovetail in, because no matter who the politicians are, and we talk to a lot of them here, that's kind of one of the things that we do at Shakers, we get a lot more politicians probably any given day than most people ever see in a year. But they are skittish. I mean, we have some that have appeared. We have some that have said they will appear, but not quite yet because they don't want to step on someone else's toes or say something untoward, even though that's their conviction.
Sure.
Which is weird to me because that's kind of how you got elected and what you're supposed to be doing is
Right.
representing. But the same thing with musicians. Now, even our house band is not playing here right now, and most of the bands we talk to from the area don't want to come. So whether it's they're concerned about COVID or they're concerned about BLM, they don't want to cross the lines and be looked down upon for either playing in a venue where they're going to be singing and not having a mask on, or
Right.
they're going to be, celebrating life and people are out, protesting life. So
So the bands are taking it, it's on the band side that they're choosing it's not best for them to be out playing.
Absolutely.
Right.
Or they're being pressured that way. But even there's a couple of other entertainment venues that are around us that we talked to for as long as they've been around. And they have the same situation. It's not just us, but even their performers, and some are jazz and some are rock and some are multi-venue. And the bands just don't want to come out and play right now. So, and even from the interview, we've got some old friends of the house that have played here for years and years and years, and they don't even want to come and sit in front of that camera like you are and talk about things because they're concerned how they're going to be perceived. And I'm like, you still gotta pay your bills, you still gotta feed your family, you gotta pay staff. I mean, these things have to move forward because if we don't, who's gonna take care of you, man?
We're in a trial and error moment. You know, it's like this is the perfect time to just throw whatever you want at the wall and see what's sticking. Everyone's doing it, and it's interesting to watch how many people have sort of taken their businesses and immediately tried to figure out how to adapt out of it. And it's cool to see how places like Milwaukee have helped these businesses adapt, doing like curbside pickups, the pre-made like cocktails and stuff. That's been really, really interesting. And my whole philosophy has always been that you have to adapt over time. No, it makes more sense to me that when you see a massive change, a massive hurt, a massive situation take place, it's way better to just immediately accept that situation and start working towards adaptation rather than sitting there and complaining and trying to work backwards and retroactively fix it. If you're impacted, okay, it's time to create change. And that could probably be said pretty universally over a lot of topics taking place right now. But just in a work sense, I saw so many people complain immediately out of like loss of work. My whole industry in the touring sector is independent contractors. Not all of us. There are some great musicians out there who hire their crews on as employees, and they take care of them with benefits. It's just rare. But it's all these independent contractors saying America's forgetting about people like us, like all these people that are holding down jobs and can't work like everyday Monday through Friday jobs. They're able to go and get their unemployment. Nobody cares about us. And for me, it's not worth the complaint. If you really understand what an independent contractor is, then you were ready for this.
Yep.
You were mentally ready. I'm not saying everybody's financially ready to take this on, and that's fully understandable, but you should be very understanding of the kind of employment you chose to be part of. And you are in the kind of world where you can just be cut off. Independent contractor, you have no rights. So when everything gets taken from you and it's in this massive sense, it's time for you to figure out, okay, here's what my strong attributes are. I can now apply it to this other industry, That's what I've been doing now.
Well, that's one of the keys of adaptation, because you always look for the opportunity. Everybody has setbacks. There's always going to be something taking place in your life, whether it's your partner, your life partner, whatever it might be. There's going to be a falling out. There's going to be a setback. There's going to be something significantly that's going to get in your way. It's that Raiders of the Lost Ark big ass ball that's coming your way. So you got to find an opportunity to do something else. You got to find a way to get past that and move on.
Yeah.
And that's, if there is a good side in this, which I think that once the dust settles at some point in the future, you will find that it's those people, as you just said, that are more entrepreneurial and find a solution. And again, it won't be the same life, but find a way to move the entire process onward.
Yes, it's I can't remember that famous book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Mm-hmm.
The rich make their money work for them. The poor work for their money.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those things where I think once I wrapped my head around that, once I really understood what that meant, and I started to have better understanding what successful business people, how they create their wealth, and how it's usually coming from multiple revenue streams, mm-hmm. passive streams as well. You start to really understand the difference between somebody who creates change for themselves and somebody who just sits there and takes it.
Puts all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah. And at the same time, I think that's also, you can zoom out bigger. And I can say that I'm very thankful from having very frugal parents who always had more than enough comfortable money, but they never spent it and they never talked about it. So I always believed that I grew up with less money than we truly did have. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, they taught me so much about how to save money and how to move money and how to be responsible with credit cards and how to boost your credit score and understand at a young age what that all means. A lot of people my age don't understand that, and because we weren't taught it. We didn't learn a lot of that stuff in school. And this is coming from somebody who I would consider myself far more successful than I ever thought I was going to be. And I never did a day of college. I only have up to a high school education. And from there forward was just figuring it out in the real world, and understanding, watching how things move and seeing how people fail, understanding their failures, understanding success, and seeing just what to bob and weave from. Mm-hmm. And especially learning from your own losses, I think there's too many people that are afraid to take on entrepreneurial endeavors because they're so afraid of the loss.
Sure.
And with that kind of mindset, it's pretty easy to sink before you even get a chance to swim, So it's a broad conversation, I think that's something we could have for a long time. But yeah, there's some financial irresponsibility as a whole that I think goes into us as a society, that if we kind of had that understanding a little better, like the way some of these European countries raise the way Germans raise their people, it'd be a different thing, But like I said, you adapt. You realize the change, and you figure out how to change with that and how to create success above it.
I agree wholeheartedly. Let's switch gears now. So what about your favorite foods when you're on the road?
Pizza, definitely.
Okay.
I'm from New England, Pizza is life. Pizza is everything. I grew up in a town of 5,000 people. We, at any given time, had 3 to 4 pizza shops, and every town around you also does. So that's definitely New Haven pizza.
Sure.
Big part. I grew up 10 minutes outside of New Haven, so that's like life. It's so interesting to go all over the place and try these different pizzas. Places like California, who to this day have not figured it out, no matter where you go. And then coming to places like Milwaukee that definitely have their own style, that I have my own opinions on as well.
So pineapple on a pizza?
Yes, 100%.
Lobster on a pizza?
Yes,
anything
definitely.
on a pizza?
Anything. You know what? Yes, it's a canvas. You make it what you want to.
Okay.
I've had dessert pizzas in, where was I? Amsterdam? Belgium. I was in Belgium, had some dessert pizzas before. I've had horrible pizza in London before. I've had horrible food in general
London,
in London.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, I mean, we can really just talk about food and travel at the same exact time. Copenhagen, I think they have some amazing food. It's a beautiful city, wildly expensive, but if you can afford to be there for a few days, there's some great like food-driven experiences there. Italy, I've only been to, I think I've only been to Milan. I didn't really get to do like a proper pizza tour of that country. That would be nice. What else? What is some? Oh, Seattle dogs. I love the local foods that you find out about once you get to these cities. Are you familiar with a Seattle dog?
I am.
I think that was something that was told to me. I went through there on tour in 2012, and somebody was like, "You gotta try this thing. So it's got sriracha and cream cheese on it." I was like, "That is definitely something I'm never going to try. That makes no sense to me." But then once you have it and you understand how that cool, refreshing like cream cheese mixes with that hot sriracha. Oh my God, it's unbelievable. Trying to think of what some other like great regional foods are. I don't know what you've had.
A lot.
Yeah.
Have you gotten down to South America or Pacific Rim, anything like that at all?
I haven't.
Okay.
So Asia and South America are still on my to-do list, as you could. Well, and so is Australia too. Mostly has been North America and Europe. A lot of time in Canada. A lot of time with Canadian artists.
So if you had the druthers to live anywhere in the world that you've been, I presume where you've been, that's where you'd like to select something. And it wasn't a matter of money, and it wasn't a matter of profession, it wasn't a matter of anything except a place to live, where would that be?
Oh.
Clearly Milwaukee has to be in the top 5.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this city I had to come here once I got here, and I realized this is a great city that I love talking to about people in my world, because people in my world are just like me. I know, I've been there. Like, that's always the story when you're talking to people. It's like,
Sure.
Yeah, I've been there. Milwaukee is definitely a stopover city. You're stopping here between Chicago and Minneapolis, 100%. So when I tell people I moved from right outside of New York City and now I'm living in Milwaukee, they're saying, why? I'm like, well, have you ever had a day off there? Like, have you ever actually spent some time? Because when I was shown what this city was, I had no clue. You know, I had absolutely no clue. If you're an arena level artist, you're pulling into that arena, doing the show, coming right back out. You never saw the place and you're downtown. If you're playing at the rave and you do have some time on your hands, chances are you didn't get in an Uber and go downtown because you don't know about Milwaukee yet. So when I was shown it, I was like, oh, this is a hidden gem. This is one of those that just hasn't popped off quite yet, you know?
Yeah.
But somewhere that I'd like to live, I think probably Copenhagen. If money was not an issue, yes, I think that would be a really, really cool place to base myself. How about you?
A few things come to mind. I'm big on Costa Rica. In the U.S., I kind of like Key West, and I kind of don't, but I kind of like Key West. Tulum, Mexico. I love Tulum. Otherwise, south of France, northern Spain.
Nice.
So
that's right. I did do my only experience south of Florida really is doing a cruise, and that was very eye-opening. It was an artist of mine that I was working with. He was going to book a cruise for all of us, and basically it was a great situation. Typical business or typical music industry business. He booked a cruise for all of us. It was a secret. After the tour, that was like sort of our surprise, is we're all going on a 7-day cruise together. Nice. So it ends up he's doing really well on radio, and it ends up that the dates that he has set aside for us are really conflicting with this private performance that the label wants him to be at, and they very badly want him to be at. It was all the way down to the idea of them flying a helicopter into the cruise ship, picking us up to go do this 15-minute performance in New York City, and then putting us back on the helicopter and going down to put us back on the ship.
Zowie.
So They got smart about it though, and they figured out how. They were like, well, we can just move it, and we'll just send you an invoice for it. So they overquoted it by quite a bit of money. We're able to pay for everybody to come out, pay for all expenses on it. But that was my experience going to like Caribbean islands, and that was a bit of a culture shock, especially experiencing it from a cruise ship side. When you're pulling into, I don't even know who I was on, I think it was like Carnival or something, and you're pulling into this like island of theirs, and you find out it's property of theirs on Haiti, and then I'm going over to where there's like a buffet line, and you see a fence line with kids holding like pots and pans, and I couldn't deal with that. I literally, I put my stuff down. I went back to the ship. I was just so messed up in the head.
Yep.
Being able to like see this literal line right here of like, this is your life.
Yep.
This is my life, and they're trying our best not to like
abject poverty.
Oh my
especially
God.
in Haiti, but yeah.
St. Martin. I thought that was a beautiful place. I don't know if you've been there.
I've been to most islands. I've not been to St. Martin.
Yeah.
Cuba is remarkable. It's a time warp. It's 60 or 70
Yes.
years of this vacuum. We have customers that I talk to about this because I'm really hepped up on Cuba. And I try to open a place there as our political situation continues to change, one step forward, two steps back kind of thing. But that's really not probably going to make any changes in my or your lifetime, no matter who's in office. It's just there are so many factors that are in play that are against it moving forward and becoming westernized, and yet it is the most educated of any island of the Caribbean.
Really?
They really are like it's like you're in Spain, except you're in a warmer climate. They identify more with Spain than they do with, say, Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic or anything else. It's a completely different cultural thing, and the architecture is extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's very European. And unfortunately, with the 60 or 70 years of just distress that's taken place, there's little reconstructive work taking place, and people don't do maintenance because there's no money.
When were you there?
I've been there a bunch of times.
So. So you've been there recently as well?
Well, within the last year, yeah.
Do they still have like old 50s Chevys?
They do.
That's still a thing?
And you've got the modern day, the Russian Volgas, whatever they are, cruising around, but almost everything is 1950s, 60s car.
Yeah,
it's
the
cool.
timestamp, right?
It is
because that's when they stopped receiving imports from the U.S.
The embargo, right?
Yeah.
And very creative people because they will take these things that are 60, 70-year-old vehicles and they keep them running and they look extraordinary.
Shoot, they've even turned them into boats and came back to the
too.
U.S. That's some ingenuity.
Some haven't, but yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a place I would love to visit. I appreciate that sort of like, one of the things I love most about being able to tour was being able to not only see so many things I never would have, but be able to see a lot of the things that can make me understand where I came from, and also certainly appreciate where I came from, appreciate who I am, the kinds of things I was born into and had no control over.
Sure.
I've met people that are very openly racist and don't even realize it, and it's just part of their life. And I'm so thankful for meeting people like that. I think it's very helpful to really be able to say, I understand you. I don't agree with you. I don't accept what you're telling me, but I get it. I get how you became the person you are. And that's important to me, is to tie it down to that and to sort of strip the emotion away for a minute and just make it an analytical observation and understand like, okay, that's why you say the things you do. And saying that in many different ways. You can go towards racism. It's the same idea. I've experienced it talking to people of wild, vast wealth as well, and the way that they'll communicate downwards, upwards, straight across to somebody they consider an equal. It's been very fascinating to just kind of like experience how many different kinds of people and areas there are. Walking around Skid Row is something I never thought I would get to do. And that's different, and it's a thing at face value that can sound very entitled, but that was an experience that I needed and wanted to do. I lived out in LA for a few weeks, and that was something I was like, I need to go feel this. I need to see this. I hear about from 9 p.m. to 6 o'clock in the morning, this becomes the most densely populated area of homeless people in the entire world. I can hear that. I can see things on YouTube, but I need to really I need to feel that so that I can appreciate my life. I can appreciate their hard work and where it has gotten them.
It's like going to New Orleans. You have to experience. You've got to be there on the ground to experience that. Or the Tenderloin District of San Francisco.
Yeah, I've had that for sure. I had, man, even just growing up outside of New York, only a few years after 9/11, I got to walk down there, and when you're only seeing rubble and you know, experiencing that. It didn't matter how many times I saw it on the TV.
Yep.
You know, it's seeing it with your own eyes and really being able to put it in perspective. I lived in San Francisco for a year. I mean, you're talking about like multi-billion-dollar companies that came out of nowhere over 6 months, and there's homeless people shooting heroin right outside their front door.
Yes.
That's something to see.
Yes.
Billions and nothing right there.
Right.
And they're walking past each other. And like, that's, for me, that's what was like, I'm so thankful I got into touring. Yeah, the money's great and whatnot, and it's created like a nice lifestyle, but it's like, I can really be comfortable saying like, I get people. I can read somebody, I can kind of get a vibe off somebody and be able to maneuver that conversation differently, you know?
Well, I've got a division in Savannah as well for tours, and I get down as often as I can, which hasn't been much lately, obviously, because we're unable to move. But when you're there, you will be in some bars, and these can be bars that, you know, a lot of the city council goes to, and a lot of attorneys and the judges go to, and you overhear the conversations, and they are still talking about the Civil War. They're talking about Beauregard. They're still talking about that flank he did, that maneuver right there. And, and in their mind, the Civil War is still taking place in so many ways. And here we are in this, you know, most educated country in the world, ostensibly, right? And yet you've got this rather significant portion of the South that still thinks that it's something completely different.
Yeah, it's a time capsule. It's really, I had family that grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, and I had gone down to visit probably somewhere around 2002 or so. Different world back then. Very, very, very different world. I mean, I was told things that were just polarizing, and they stuck with me. And again, I was so thankful that I like heard these things and was able to create my own judgment out of it. Like, I mean, family members telling me, white kids go to private school, black kids go to public school. That's just the way it goes. And I'm sitting there being like, how is it just that's the way it goes? And just confused as a 12-year-old. As a 12-year-old, just being like, I don't get this. And I don't get, like, when you're experiencing these words from people that are supposed to be loving members of your core unit, but they're saying things that don't really line up with how you're growing up as a kid in the 90s. We're thinking differently, you know, than growing up in previous generations, especially somebody who grew up in the South. It was such a crazy, it was just too much. It was like too much to just sit there from the North and know that I have the kinds of friends I do at home, and I'm like, y'all really think like that? Like, y'all really just accept that you're something and there's something different.
Less than 1,000 miles away from South Carolina, and you can be in Costa Rica. You know, Costa Rica, and so much of Costa Rica is going to be jungle and rainforest, right? So you take these nighttime excursions, start at maybe 10 o'clock at night, and they go for 4 hours or something. And everything around you, because it's just a couple of people and a guide, everything around you wants to kill you and has the capability to. And so the guide will say something like, by the way, if you get bit or stung, the nearest hospital is 4 hours away, and you'll be dead in 20 minutes. So, let's go. Yeah, okay. But I mean, that's just a whole different perspective on life, and it's very primal and excites you in a whole different way.
Yeah.
Because life is very fragile, it's very tenuous, it can be over in a heartbeat, and the way that we continue to lose track of that in this country and other countries, and for the benefit of a few to the detriment of many, is just wrong. And we should be far beyond that. We should have adapted beyond that point. We should have come to realize that, you know, we are in this together. We are people together. We have to find a way for it to work. Yes, there are inequities. And you talk about Cuba, which I could do all day, is that everything is equal. Some things are just more equal. And that's the old Soviet system as well. But, you know, people kind of have a little different comprehension of things as well. They don't have the expectations. And that's one of the killers for us, no pun intended with this at all, with COVID, because our families went through this in the 1940s during World War II, where there was no gas, there was no chocolate, there was no anything, and you had to take your family belongings and donate those to the war fund. They can melt them down and make munitions or something else. We don't have that deprivation taking place today in our society. We have other things taking place, but we don't appreciate the 3 or 4 or 5 years of complete deprivation. And then you think about what they went through in Europe time and time again, and sometimes for generations, right? Where you've just got nothing. And that still is prevalent today in so many places. We are so fortunate. We are so far beyond that. This truly is a remarkable country in so many ways. And yet you have factions that just want to rip it apart rather than find a way to come together, to meet across that aisle, and let's find a way to make it better. The concept seems to be these zealots, these fringe things. Let's rip it down. And it's just, what is wrong with people?
I think it's lack of experience, or lack of experience with people outside of your bubble. Is the larger you can make your bubble, I think the better everyone else is being able to just get out there. This is why it's so much easier. And again, I may have grown up 80 miles outside of a place like New York City. I may have been in a place like Connecticut, but there is a lot of rural area of Connecticut. And when you talk about a farmland kind of area of 5,000 people, yeah, certainly growing up, racism was not a problem. It was, I mean, not a problem to be voiced. It was like, it was just out there and accepted, and there was language that just took place very naturally. Even myself as a kid, just being told different kinds of like morals and like stories as a kid that just sort of, that can be very impactful if you don't get out there. I feel almost saved, you know, is from getting out there and being able to see more people. But it's the lack of experience. If you don't understand something else, how can you be comfortable with it? If you spend every day of your life with a tiger, you're going to be comfortable with that tiger. If you come across the tiger 20 years into life and you've never seen one before, you're probably not going to be,
not a good outcome.
There's no, because you've had no experience. You know, you're afraid of what it is, and you're going to be fearful of anything you don't understand.
Well, the expression down south for many years was that they didn't care, the white population didn't care how, whether or not black people lived next door to them. They just didn't want them to become successful. Up here, it for many years, it's a different kind of thing. We wanted people to be successful, just don't live by us. You know, we're in Elm Grove and Brookfield.
Right.
You can live in Mequon, we don't care, but we want you over there.
Yeah,
Make
right.
all the money you want. But down south, it's a different kind of concept. Yeah, you can live next door, but don't make a lot of money.
Yeah,
be successful.
Yeah.
So
I think they like to still see the sort of like upper hand.
Sure, the perceived hierarchy in their mind.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean.
Well, you know, Brits the same way. I mean, people in England look down upon people in Ireland, and even people in Scotland or Wales. Oh my God, the Welsh, forget that. But,
yeah, we're certainly not a new experiment of racism. You know, we're just the most recent, most prevalent experience of it. It's taking place all over the place. The ethnic cleansing happening all over Africa. You know, these are things that are happening in other countries. It's just now in our front yards. You know, it's not just in our televisions, and it's a conversation that's been meant to be had, and now it seems like there's a bit more dialogue going on. But as far as forward change goes, I don't think that one singular moment is going to change everything. We need to just like use opportunities to just connect with people outside of our bubble. People need to start like experiencing and being around and being comfortable to talk to and have questions to people that they know they're not going to agree with, and be comfortable with whatever they hear back, you know, and let that just digest. I don't know. I feel like I've done enough thinking over the past couple of weeks to just kind of be like, I'm still here with the same thought, is that it's just ignorance. And ignorance is okay. It's okay to be ignorant if it's naive, you know, if it's just genuine ignorance of never having experienced something. And we just need more experiences. That's it.
Well, ignorance and education are two different things, but I think that we could eliminate many problems by having a better grasp of education. People have to learn simple things, and I talk about this all the time. You have to be able to read and to write, because you have to understand how the language works, right?
Yeah.
You have to do simple mathematics, and you have to learn the social interaction and how to get along with people, and that's really what grade school and middle school are kind of about, right? And at least in my mind it is. And then you know, hopefully something piques your interest and you go further with that, and hopefully it's something that works out, you can continue on. And even if it's not that one core thing, it is the ability to open your mind, expand your mind to something else, or to put yourself in a position that you might then grasp onto something else.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Equality, I think. More people just being equally minded. Rich people hanging out with poor people, colored people hanging out with white people. Every sort of opposite should just all be in the same place. To all get to understand everybody, you know? Anybody that's looking upwards can learn how to get up there. Anybody who's looking downwards can learn how to bring them up or how to ensure never going down there, you know? There's so much to just learn from just mixing it all together. Get everybody in a room.
So if you were, I can't imagine why you'd want to do this, but if you were a political figure, you were an alderman or a mayor, let's say the city of Milwaukee, what would you be doing? What would you want to get accomplished to try to help the city?
Wow. That's a heavy question for a position I never considered before.
All the better.
I think that there's a budding creative community here in Milwaukee that needs to be pushed. And I think using that as the medium would also help open up other discussions, such as racism, segregation in general, wealth inequality. But I think that this city is so on the cusp of an identity right now, like in a real identity. You ask me as somebody who's...
Positive or negative identity?
Positive, for sure.
Good.
Yeah, definitely. There's not anything really touching this city right now, I think, in a national sense, that's negative. But we're on that cusp. I mean, DNC, which we'll see how that all goes, but clearly this state is in the middle of turning. It's becoming bluer over time, it seems like, and it's got a successful sports team now. There's a creative community here that is not being exploited. There's so much room for this to be on that national scale and to really be that place. This really is there's so many people, I cannot believe how many people can't put Milwaukee on a map, literally. They don't, when they say, and then when you tell them Wisconsin and they understand it's in that state that they don't ever think about, they're like, oh, you're in Canada then, right? You must be in the woods. Fully unaware that I'm an hour shot from one of the most important cities in our country, you know? And yeah, I think that this city is ready to go. It's ready
Mr.
to
Mayor,
explode.
What would you do? What's the step that you're going to take to get us on the national, in a positive capacity, in the national spotlight? How are you going to do that?
Something down the avenue of exploiting the creative community here.
Okay.
Something that, or some things. It would be multiple things, but how that is, I don't know. I really can't say.
I'm going to make a little suggestion to you, Mr. Mayor, here, because I think that obviously we have benefited from having Summerfest here for 50 years, the world's largest music festival, right?
Right.
So it's really been a 800-pound gorilla in the room as well, because it sucks the life out of every bar and every restaurant since it's been open. It just does. That's an established fact. Downtown Milwaukee, people go there. You don't want them afterwards because as the world's largest drunk and rugging festival, they're not in a condition you want to deal with anyway, right? So that's what takes place for that week and a half period, 10, 11 days. And then you've got all the other festivals that, again, move things there. So all these phenomenal entertainers that have come out of Milwaukee, if they're not playing there, where you go there and you pay it's really inexpensive, $15, $20 to get in, whatever it might be, right? You can hear anything. These incredible national, international acts that are performing around you all the time. And then my understanding of this, again, owning venues for 40 years, is that people then don't want to pay cover charges when they go out to smaller venues or Shank Hall or something, Eagle, whatever. They're reluctant to pay what that same act would get at another place because they're so accustomed to getting it for virtually nothing.
Right.
So I think that kind of works against that. So I'm not saying to get rid of Summerfest. It's a marvelous thing. And we were part of the Summerfest family for many years. It's really a marvelous thing. But that notwithstanding, and without exploiting the cultural things that are here, how do you kind of get people to realize that there's a price to pay for everything? And maybe you don't have as many really good bands or performance arts or burlesque or something else taking place in the city anymore because people don't want to support it. Not that they can't, they elect not to support it.
Well, it seems like probably the model that they're running off of is the fact that they're the longest running festival, and they're playing into this model that they have of, how long is that? Oh, you said a week and a half? That's how long it is? As far as music festivals go, festivals that are centered strictly around the music, bringing in the money to the festival, Summerfest is its own beast that operates like no other festival, and everybody in my world knows that. Not only in the length of it, but then also in the day-to-day logistics and what the artist goes through and deals with is, I would say it would be like taking a multi-million-dollar artist who's used to getting treated with a certain kind of treatment because they draw in 20,000 people and asking them to go play a state fair with local mom and pops that are just throwing on the weekend event. You know, it's you end up dealing with that sort of scenario. You don't get treated at all the same. It's not as comfortable. Yeah, pay is great, of course, you know, and everything comes down to the almighty dollar. But yeah, I think that festival is something that would benefit greatly if they curated it down to what festivals are. This festival, Summerfest, is not something like Lollapalooza. Lollapalooza draws in people from everywhere and brings them to Chicago, bringing awareness of Chicago to outsiders. Summerfest is a treat for locals. I'm sure that they're drawing in people from Illinois. I'm sure there definitely are people traveling, but it's not a camping festival. You're not getting people that are really coming out to spend elongated periods of time from such distances, I think, as you are with something that's just 3 days, come in, get it done, go back home, go back to work, you know? It's almost like this thing that's like structured, like it's curated for people of wealth that can maneuver schedules over 9-day periods, but it's not actually that. Toronto has that. Toronto has a music festival that's for bougie people that can do that kind of stuff. And like, it's like a Monday through Wednesday crazy festival. And yeah, who goes to that kind of stuff and spends money? People that got money, you know, and that can say, oh, I'm not going to go back to my business. This is different. I can see from a local business what you're saying. And I think that, yeah, if they curated this differently, if they started being that other entity, it would be something you guys would certainly benefit from, but would they benefit from it?
Well,
would Milwaukee benefit from it?
I don't know. Fortunately, our clientele at Shakers is, any given day, is half Chicago or beyond. Anyway, we got a whole different reach than most joints do, and a little bit more of a spendy kind of comprehension, which is why I've been around for 34 years here. But for performers, we get them before Summerfest, we get them after. There are stories that they're here sometimes so 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And by the time they get on that tour bus, well, you know, God bless them.
Right.
But when there was the first year at Summerfest, and we're still doing our gig, and that's the first year that they had a high-end dining situation taking place. And I'm walking the grounds with one of the heads of one of the stages that's there, and we stopped at the venue, and we're having dinner there. And the general manager of this major restaurant group in Milwaukee, whose name I won't mention, is complaining to people about those goddamn bands. He said if they just stopped playing so loud, people could hear what's going on. I'm thinking, boy, are you in the wrong place? You know, this is a music festival, first and foremost, right? So, I mean, it's whatever it is. It's just that Milwaukee has an interesting perspective on so many things that aren't big. And I think I often say this: Milwaukee's biggest enemy is Milwaukeeans because they don't think beyond here right now.
You know, that's something I hear from when I talk as an outsider to people, especially in the creative aspect of being like, you know, why haven't these artists like taken this further? How come they don't get out of the city? Why don't they play more shows in Chicago, expand? And that's exactly the same narrative, and it's frustrating, but it's almost this idea of like, I appreciate it because it's like you love where you're from. There is certainly a hometown pride here that as an outsider, I'm just like, I want to be part of that club, you know? I want to be one of those guys. And now I am, for sure. I rep this place like it's New York City, and people look at me sideways when I'm in Europe and they've never heard of Milwaukee, you know? But there's like a bit of complacency that also balances in there too. And, you know, that's just... I don't know. Maybe that's kind of like descriptive of like a stereotypical character of the Midwest is you're happy with what you got. Why we got to go for more, you know? Like, whereas somebody like me with more of a New York edge to it is like, there's never enough. You can always get more, you know? Are you familiar with South by Southwest?
Sure.
Maybe that's a medium or maybe that's a structure that Summerfest could work with to implement into the city, because that's literally, I mean, that takes over Austin.
I love Austin, by the way.
Corner markets, corner bodega markets, all of a sudden become music venues.
Yep.
It's the most. Have you been?
I have.
It's absolutely crazy. I was there, like, I've done it multiple times now. Once with a band that was the most sought after band there, and it was the worst week of my life. 3 hours of sleep a night, 5 performances a day. It was absolute hell. But like, that made Austin's real estate what it is now,
yes.
which is something something that was attainable. Like, my net worth now, it was attainable 10 years ago. Now that I'm finally like, all right, I got the money to buy property in Austin. No.
Oh, I think
it's
before
gone.
South by Southwest, though, there was a program on PBS going back to like maybe 1970-ish, Austin City Limits. And I think that was
iconic.
That was iconic.
Yeah.
That opened the door for that, and that then launched into the festival. I think that's how that worked.
Yeah, that definitely helped give that platform for South by, and then South by, essentially, it grew out of its britches so heavily that it couldn't even expand, and it just allowed this new thing, unofficial
Well, the
South
money
by.
in Texas certainly helped as well, because
What's that?
The money in Texas, I mean, that just provided more opportunity. It just fed so much more.
What do you mean?
Compared to the money in Milwaukee, there's so much more money
way
there
more.
too.
That oil money for sure, definitely. But yeah, if there's a way that they could figure out how to implement something of that style into Milwaukee, where Summerfest becomes this idea that takes over Milwaukee, you know, then that is a compromise where it keeps it in the same like long structure, but everybody has the ability to benefit. But it takes them wanting to have that initiative.
Yep.
I don't think that they put enough into the into supporting local artists here. I also know that I'm saying that without a full understanding of what it is they might do. But when I think of, like, you put a couple local artists on to Summerfest every year, that to me strikes me as the bare minimum. I mean, you know, they make great money at Summerfest. They could be injecting that money all year round, doing quarterly. You wouldn't call them quarterly, but they could be doing seasonal showcases of artists and just helping bring that awareness of local music into Milwaukee, so that when that artist does get that opportunity to play at Summerfest, it's not a lottery ticket. It truly feels earned. I was meant to be here. I'm part of this. Not I scratched it off and I got the golden ticket that says I can stand on stage. Because that's how it feels. Like, looking at it is like you just kind of gave them a chance, but it wasn't founded.
North of $150 million every year for an 11-day run.
That's gross, though.
That's gross.
Yeah.
But that's a big gross.
Oh.
And especially the rent for years was less than $20,000 a year to the city of Milwaukee. I think it's now a whopping $100,000. So peanuts. Just peanuts.
Yeah.
A Miller concession for one day. Here you go.
Yeah. I mean, they're not paying out a ton of money in guarantees to these artists. I mean, the headliner even the amphitheater stage, they're selling tickets to that. So it's not even like they're fronting all that cost, and it has to come out of the gross. So that's a whole different thing. So in that sense, the headliners that are around like the Miller stage and whatnot, I mean, those are people walking away with, I say this lightly, with only like low 6 figures. But when you talk about 150 grossed and what operating costs are, which are very minimal, I'm sure, there's a lot of, I think they get a lot of volunteers, right?
They do.
Tons of volunteer work as well. So you factor in all that, all of a sudden, low 6 figures is not much money at all to receive.
I agree.
So, you know,
if you're a food vendor, that's 28% off the top. It might be more today.
At the same time, I do still believe in a strong corporate America. You do what you do. If you're being profitable and you're not truly being morally corrupt, make your money and spend it how you please.
There you go.
You know, just don't be hurting people in the process.
There you go. No sin.
Highs and lows of your job, craziest road story ever?
Oh, so craziest road story ever is definitely something that never gets answered, because it's just
ongoing.
It's I don't have one like that. It's just a crazy lifestyle, you know. It's a crazy lifestyle of, like, there's always wild stuff happening. I definitely I mean, if I was to pull one random thing, that's probably like, there was a time in Amsterdam where an artist was out at a club, and when an artist is in a club, they own that club. They get all the bottles. We know how much bottles cost in a club setting. Everything's free. It's a big scene. All the girls are there. Paparazzi taking pictures. So anybody else who's there who's not a popular, famous person, but has bukus of cash just like them, they get very competitive very, very quickly. Sure. We're talking about very small people at the end of the day that have very large bank accounts. So when they see all this attention going somewhere and they were like, I wanted to spend $100,000 tonight for everybody to look at me, it gets a little bit of a thing. So there was a situation in Amsterdam. This guy's kind of throwing looks. The team's not liking it. It gets to a place. The guy blows a kiss at him. Guy on my team took it in a manner that he felt very insulted by and proceeded to beat the living hell out of this person. So that happens. They leave. They get in their vehicle. And it turns out that what it was is that was a Saudi Arabian prince, and he felt insulted and was giving him the kiss of death, letting him know this is your last night. And the next day had to be a conference, not a call I was at all part of, but a conference call between managements, lawyers, and Saudi Arabian representatives to diffuse this and make sure it doesn't turn into something that becomes, world news. So that's just, we call that Wednesday.
That's cool. So, any problems with the police in any of your venues?
I haven't. I definitely haven't. The police are very, very understanding and helpful in all the situations I've ever had, whether it be my own headline shows. Sure. They understand why they're there. Yep. And a lot of the times, you actually do save money by paying for off-duty cops as opposed to on duties. But still, the respect is always there. They respect the notoriety of the artist. With hip-hop artists, I still have never encountered that kind of like attitude or shrugness to it. It's still always handled professionally, and they understand what the lifestyle is that comes with the business. So trust me, there is definitely tons of weed being smoked in a dressing room with 4 police officers standing right outside of our door. Yep. But it's not in their best interest to bother us. Sure. That's, they're there for a different thing. They understand that this is a person of notoriety. That doesn't matter as much as if somebody came in here with a gun, right. So police interaction has always been like really great. You interact with the local police at every arena show. They bring bomb sniffing dogs in as well. Like that's always an interaction. Yeah. Been very, very thankful for their help, that's for sure. They've gotten us out of some sticky situations.
Good to hear now about those sticky situations.
Oh man, yeah, things happen, emotions run rampant sometimes. Yeah. People get carried away and like to try and get on TV.
Yeah.
You
gonna write a book?
What's that?
You gonna write a book?
I think
the names were changed.
Yeah, right. I might have to just write some sort of like fiction book and make it all a story I made up. But yeah, I mean it's been interesting. It's been a cool life experience over the past 10, 11 years, I guess now. But I know that I'm not built for this forever. I know for sure I do not want to be getting on a 4:45 a.m. flight out of Chicago to go to London when I'm 45 years old. Yep. I know that like I'm doing this now while I have the energy and the drive to do it. Sure. But grass is always greener. The amount of people that come up to me and say, I wish I could do what you do. Like, I wish I had your life. That the times you get those kind of sentences is when it's very important to remind people, I get it. This really is an amazing life. I tell everyone that says that, I've been places you'll never be. I've met people, ate at restaurants you'll never be to. I've definitely also missed family funerals. I've lost relationships. I missed my brother's wedding. I've had my fair share of drawbacks that totally create that bittersweetness. Right. long as that sweetness outweighs the bitter, you're good to go. Live your life, do this kind of lifestyle. But I know that it's already happening. The sweetness that I had when I started this is already going the other way. And once that bitter outweighs it, I got to get out, you know, or who knows what I'll end up.
Right. Brian, this has been a lot of fun. And I hope perhaps sometime we can do this again as we get a better handle on when the world's going to open up.
Yeah.
But this has been great. So,
of course.
brother, thanks so much.
Appreciate
Cheers.
you.
Next time.